humanity has become allergic to itself. That's what I must conclude from all these studies on sexuality, all the laws related to sexuality, all the hysteria about supposed sexual abuse. Because if we take this seriously, then you can only eliminate sexual violence, as they call it in this study, by eliminating sex itself. There's no other way to do it. Because look here, they define sexual violence as including unwanted sexual approach. And then they find that 20% of girls said, 17-year-old girls in a UK cohort study in 2001 and 2, they reported at 17 years of age, 20.2% of 5,000 girls had reported experiencing any sexual violence in the previous 12 months. Now 5.3% was what they call assault, which would include some real violence, yes, even by the generous feminist definitions of sexual assault, you only get 5.3%. But then you hyperinflate this to 20%. When you include unwelcome sexual approach. Okay. Now let's imagine if we're going to eliminate unwelcome sexual approach. And this article goes on to agitate for worse laws, more aggressive law enforcement, and so forth. As always, of course. It's never enough. But let's just imagine what we would have to do to eliminate unwelcome sexual approach. Because what is unwelcome sexual approach? If you ask a girl out on a date and she says no, that's an unwelcome sexual approach. You can't imagine having a humanity where there is no unwelcome sexual approach unless you do something like keep girls always covered up and segregated the whole time, and maybe the parents should arrange marriages for them, and that's the exception to unwelcome approach. You need to have some exception, otherwise they can't reproduce at all. But let's just say that's the one time when girls can be approached is when her parents arranges a marriage for her. Assuming you just don't want total extinction, you need to have some exception where a sexual approach would be acceptable, right? So if we're going to take this seriously and eliminate all unwelcome sexual approach, you need to at least go so far to keep girls always segregated and always chaperone segregated, kept away from boys at all times. Except there's one exception where they, to allow for reproduction, and traditionally this is done by marriage. But I guess that's, you're still gonna have some unwelcome sexual approach within marriage. So you can't really have humanity at all. Humanity has become allergic to itself. If we take this ideology seriously, then we just have to abolish humanity. And here they also reference a study from 2021 estimates from school populations showed high levels of sexual violence, with 79% of surveyed girls reporting sexual assault of any kind. That probably doesn't even include all these unwelcome approaches. That's what they now call assault when we have progressed 20 years, with 20 years more extreme feminism from 2001 to 2021. Now we're up to, from 5% was the sexual assault level in 2021 by those definitions that were valid at the time. And now the researchers claim that is 79%. Once again, it becomes unthinkable to have a humanity that eliminates what they call sexual violence now. And still exists. It's just not possible because you already ramped up the crimes to the worst witch hunt humanity has ever seen. And that's not good enough. And these so-called assaults have only increased now in the 20 years of progressive feminism from 2001 to 2021. This sexual assault level has gone up from 5 to 79%. Because of course they moved the goalposts. They define ever more of sexuality as violence. So let's see what, according to this paper, you could accomplish if we didn't have this so-called sexual violence. Then they estimate that you could have a 14 to 18.7% relative reduction in the prevalence of adverse mental health outcomes in girls, and a 3.7 to 10.5% relative reduction in boys. Okay. That's not even a very big difference. I mean, the gender difference is huge, but the difference in mental health outcome would only be something like 1 in 5 teen girls who have mental health issues could be helped if we didn't have so-called sexual violence. But at what cost? At what cost would we eliminate this so-called sexual violence? If we're gonna get rid of unwanted approaches, any girl who has ever been hit on by a male that she doesn't like or want, we're gonna eliminate all that because that is now considered evil and unacceptable to girls to live with. Then you just have to kill all men, basically. I don't see how this could possibly be accomplished and still have a humanity. This is where we're at. Humanity has become allergic to itself. That's how hateful feminism is.